Hi, Trustee Brandon.
Hello, greetings to you.
Well, for one, happy birthday. I believe today is your birthday.
Thank you. Well, you're about a few days late. My birthday was on Wednesday, but I
Oh, I'm
appreciate
sorry.
you
Well,
acknowledging that.
happy belated birthday.
Thank you. It's a blessing to still be here and in good health. So I just all the glory goes to God for His grace and His mercy.
So, as we said in the past, we're going to be endorsing people for mayor of Maywood this year. It's the first time we've made such an endorsement. It will have been the first time we've endorsed anybody in nearly a decade of us doing this. And when I say this, I mean being a newspaper. So we wanted to give each candidate an opportunity to sit for an interview before we made an official endorsement. These interviews will only be part of a much broader, more comprehensive process that we hope will involve a wide array of community stakeholders and residents in the village of Maywood. With that said, I want to remind people, and I'll also remind people at the end, that there are two more opportunities for residents and potential voters to see the candidates in action. There is a physical in-person forum, candidates forum, that will be held Wednesday, March 24th, 10 a.m. at Proviso Baptist Church, 1116 South 5th Avenue in Maywood. Interfaith Illinois Incorporated is hosting that forum. Doors open at 9 a.m. For more information, you should call 708-397-6944. The organizers have noted that distance seating and CDC COVID-19 protocols will be observed. And then the next day, on Thursday, March 25th, 7 p.m., the Coalition for Spiritual and Public Leadership will host a candidates forum online. You can visit csplaction.org for more information about that event. So these interviews are, basically conversational, one-on-one. I want to give each of you all opportunity to answer questions, some tough questions, but also to explain your record and to explain some of your plans for office. So that said, kind of want to get to the first question, which we also posed to Mayor Perkins. During this election, one way we've tried to hold candidates accountable and to make this election transparent has been by submitting questionnaires for candidates to answer that we then posted to a website called activisttoolkit.org. We appreciate you for submitting your candidate's questionnaire, but it was roughly 2 weeks after the deadline. What does that say about your ability to hold yourself accountable, and how should voters trust you to do your duties as mayor if you can't turn in a candidate questionnaire on time? That's the first question.
Thank you so much for the question. As you know, as we continue to navigate through this pandemic, it has been a busy season for us all, and our team wanted to make sure that we all kind of really took a look at those questions to make sure we had the right responses and make sure that we filled it out in a thorough manner as well. So again, we do apologize for getting that in late, but we wanted to come together to make sure that our thoughts were very clear. One of the questions that were asked.
Okay, appreciate that. In the area of accountability, one of the board's functions is to regularly assess the performance of both of the village manager, which is essentially the only employee that the board is responsible for. Can you kind of explain how that assessment process is right now, and if you're satisfied with the way it's currently structured?
Sure. So what happens is around this time, we receive a document from our village attorney, and this document has different questions on there that we collectively and individually sit down to answer those particular questions on, whether it's do we think that the manager displayed leadership, or do we think that he's been effective in different areas. Is he like motivating staff? So we answer those questions individually, and then we come together as a board to compile our different responses to come up with a scoring type of system to identify where he is at when it relates to metrics, right? So we have not been doing that, to be honest, Mike. We have not really been able to effectively implement the current tool that we utilize to measure the manager. And part of that is really because of how contentious things have gone in regards to our evaluation process of the manager. And I do believe that we need to examine the current tool that we're being utilized to see if there's a better tool to be able to identify, how we need to move forward when it relates to the direction for the village manager and when it relates to our evaluation process altogether. I think we may need to identify a better tool, but we haven't, to be honest, we have not, I don't think, did our jobs as elected officials because those meetings have been very much contentious.
I think that all three of you at this point, the mayor, along with you and Trustee Booker, have expressed dissatisfaction with the way that the performance review process is set up. It's almost close to a four-person majority, and I'd be willing to bet if I, asked another trustee, any of the other trustees, they may register some amount of dissatisfaction with the process as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's consensus then, I suspect, on the board that this process is not effective. May have nothing to do with the current manager or whoever is in the position is really about how the board is going about evaluating their sole employee. So if all of you, agree that you're not satisfied with this process, why has nobody tried to bring their board colleagues along to make sure that you guys put in place a better, more effective process?
And I think that it's just communicating with one another to help, bring it to the table. I don't think that we've had shared conversation regarding the matter and have we looked at other tools that we can use to better assess the manager's performance.
So if you're mayor, how are you going to improve it?
Well, I look forward to, first of all, making sure that I work with the board colleagues because, a mayor, you can't do the job alone, but you must work with the board to be able to identify a better tool to be able to track the performance of the village manager. And I think that we must be, transparent as well with the residents so that they are brought into the fold on what measures we're using to track his performance. So they're well aware and they understand how we come about the different results that we come to the table with.
The village manager's contract is ending soon. Would you be in support of would you support renewing it as mayor?
Appreciate the question. Yeah, so what I'm looking forward to doing as mayor is raising the standards within the village of Maywood and making sure that we have the right people in place to be able to meet those standards. So I think that making sure that we understand how this process works is key as well. So in order to replace anybody, right, you must have the votes and you must have the board support, or at least have enough votes to be able to move forward on such an item. And since this is a personnel related issue, I think that for me it's about just raising the standards and seeing whether or not individuals will meet those standards, and then moving forward based on the standards that we have set forth for that particular person.
Well, this can be a segue into a question that's come up among community members, and that's if you don't win, if you are not elected mayor, and if you are elected mayor, but you come in with trustees who weren't your running mates or who were not on your slate, how are you going to work with these other people to ensure that the village is more professional, that board meetings are run more professional, and that you all have the ability to hold your employees accountable?
So, for me, to be honest, I think that it's just about, coming to the table to, with a shared vision and working collectively, more collaboratively as well. I think that, when it relates to getting board members on the same page, that we must communicate first with each other. And I think that when we started off, by just changing the tone of like the council chambers, when myself, Trustee Jones, and Trustee Booker were elected, one of the things that we did before we were sworn in, we had a sit down conversation about how we would, conduct ourselves and how we would conduct ourselves in the chamber and how we would work together to just improve the atmosphere within the council chambers. And so that was something that we had set out to do, but unfortunately, we had someone who, just did not hold true to the agreement that we had set. And so, just from the offset, it was just like this whole contentious situation, especially when you have, individuals who have not removed themselves from the campaign trail. And it's like this competition type of mindset versus like, how can we truly work together to move the village forward? So I think that we must change like our mindsets and understand that when we are up there on that dais, that we are on one team, and that's Team Maywood, and that we all should be working together to get the best results for this community.
So, because you were rather vague about mentioning someone, who you're talking about is, and are you still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. I thought you had frozen. You're talking about Trustee Booker. So what you're saying, I want to be clear, when Trustee Booker, Miguel Jones, and yourself, when all three of you were elected to the board, you said you all made a pact or some type of vow with each other to be civil?
Yes, we did.
And you're claiming that Trustee Booker broke that?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, actually. So we sat down and we talked about how we were going to just conduct business, how we're going to, if we have a disagreement or needed clarity on issues, that how we would bring it to each other versus, hashing things out at a board meeting. And, due to the fact that, I just believe that, Trustee Booker just didn't remove himself from the campaign trail. It was just always this contentious back and forth situation. And he just didn't hold true to the agreement that we had set. So for me, I look forward to having a conversation with Trustee Booker and sitting down with the trustees individually to come together with a shared vision for the village of Maywood and how we're going to move the village forward, because it's in the best interest of our residents. And we all are working together because we all are on one team at the end of the day. And I've always committed myself to not to participate in what I consider petty, personal, small politics, because I think that it prevents us from focusing in on accomplishing, the big things that we need to accomplish to move this village forward.
So you said that that Trustee Booker was the one who broke the pact to be civil between the three of you, and that's why some board meetings are as contentious as they are.
Yes.
And you bear no responsibility personally, or no other board members are not.
Yeah, and I
responsibility.
Yeah, and I will have to say, in this shared situation, really, across the board, I would just believe, just coming in, that the whole, the presentation, just was just off. I think
because you lost your composure in board meetings too.
Yeah, and it is. I have to be honest. It is when you're in that space, it's very difficult at times to keep your composure because of some of the things that happens in that chamber. And you have to, make sure that you are just checking your emotions and making sure that you're not being personal about things, and that you're staying focused on what the facts are, and staying focused on the work of the residents, work on the behalf of the village of Maywood.
You, when answering a question about COVID-19 at the March 14th forum that we hosted, said that you've been on the ground in regards to defeating COVID-19 since March of 2020. after receiving a briefing about the virus from the National League of Cities, you called a meeting with the village manager and the village department heads, and you all worked to establish a COVID response team. What did that response team look like?
So basically, it would included like the department heads as well as the village manager, and so it was basically to kind of like strategize on different ideas that we could implement to help keep our residents and our employees safe. So we came up with different strategies about, making sure like, all facilities, were closed, closing the village hall to protect our residents, and identifying ways to make sure that, folks, we had the type of equipment that was needed in regards to PPE gear as well. And so the department heads were at the table and they kind of like brought their ideas to the table as well. And it comprised this list that the village manager presented, or the HR director presented at the board meeting on how we would move forward as a village in regards to navigating through this pandemic.
And what was that, in March of last year?
Yes, it was.
But since then, there had been multiple outbreaks in Village Hall and in the police department, and I've reported on this. And the village manager had admitted that there had been no village-wide protocol for dealing with COVID-19, meaning, you had one set of standards at the village hall, but then at the police department, you had a completely different set of standards. Why was that discussed when you had this COVID response team? Because that really falls within the boards, arena of setting policy. So a village-wide policy like that should be something that's created from the board down. As a board member who was, I guess, the one who called the meeting, you say, do you feel some responsibility for not having established a village-wide COVID-19 policy that your board colleagues could have voted on, and that maybe village officials and staffers could adhere to?
Yeah, and that's definitely an excellent approach that should have been taken as well. But I just wanted to respond in like a quick manner in regards to getting the village manager and his department heads like on the same page in regards to putting something together to protect our residents and our employees. And so that could have been another approach that could have been taken, and I think that it could have probably had a greater impact in regards to making sure that we were consistent across the board. So I'll definitely accept that.
You also said during that forum that you called colleagues that you've been working on the ground with Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, calling his office to try to understand how we can get additional assistance to navigate through the pandemic.
Yes.
And that recently you had been visiting the Maywood Garden apartment senior homes and found out that a lot of seniors are immobile, and so they couldn't get the vaccine. You said, and I quote, "I asked my Cook County Board President, Tony Preckwinkle, and lo and behold, there's now a vaccination hub at the Garden House facility, which is one of our facilities in town." Did you mean to say that your call to President Preckwinkle is why there was a mobile vaccination clinic?
Yeah, so, and this is actually at a board meeting, actually. She attended one of our board meetings, and I, communicated with her during the board meeting the need to get the vaccines directly to seniors, especially those who are not mobile to go to the various locations. And she mentioned that, I forget the gentleman's name who was also on the call, that she would have the gentleman to look into it, and that the county was moving in that direction to set up like these mobile locations.
So you asked her about the mobile locations. She told you there was progress being made.
Absolutely. This was during a board meeting. Yes.
So you're saying your call was responsible for the mobile clinic being at the Garden House?
The call was.
That conversation, that board conversation. You're saying that board conversation it resulted in a mobile clinic being at the Garden House?
Well, I hope that it helped. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And just to be clear, the clinic was temporary, so it was only there for one day.
Right. So with the goal to vaccinate, 100, seniors in the building, it's my hope that the same thing happens over at our Phoenix home as well, because I've been communicating with the staff at both buildings just throughout this pandemic, doing what I can to make sure that they have the support that they need to help them navigate through the pandemic.
If you're mayor, how would you address some of the gaps in implementation that have been apparent when it comes to making sure that COVID-19 protocols are in place across the village? How as mayor would you work to strengthen those protocols and measures?
And I think what was needed, even in this case, Mike, to be honest, is like an emergency response team for any particular issue or any particular situation, to be able to have everybody on the same page with one goal, one vision, no one going off doing anything other than like what that shared vision is, and just moving forward in that direction. I think that with this pandemic and what you mentioned earlier about the outbreak, I think that some folks were more relaxed in regards to what had been put in place, what had been established, and from what I'm hearing, you didn't have folks wearing their mask, and this is what what was communicated with me in regards to what had happened, one of the situations. So just making sure things are being enforced, making sure things are consistent, and making sure that everybody, especially like the village manager, is communicating to his department heads on what we expect of the village.
Do you think the village is adequately, conducting financial forecasts and things of that nature to make sure that as you all, as the board builds budgets, that the staffers are going to be responsible with carrying out, that you all are adequately taking into account the fact that we're in a pandemic and in a recession?
Yeah, I think that we are, and one of the things that I worked with my board colleagues just to make sure that I reiterated just the impact that this pandemic was going to have on like our revenue, and we've seen that with the $2 million budget gap that we had to fill due to short revenue. So I think that the staff is definitely looking at how it's going to impact our different revenue streams that we have. And I think one area that we have already seen that has been impacted is, like I stated, like our revenue coming in.
It's turned into like fiscal matters. You said that we need, obviously you voted against the 0% tax levy. One, explain your reasons for voting against a flat tax, and what would you have preferred the levy be?
Yeah, I definitely voted against the 0% tax levy, and I stand on that. I believe and not leading with fear and feelings, but leading with facts. We due to like the increased liabilities, we had to address those things. And if you're not bringing in any additional revenue streams to be able to offset that, we know that Maywood is a community that's made up of predominantly like it's residential. So of course, a lot of that cost will lean towards the taxes as a solution to kind of address this until we are able to aggressively look at other areas like getting properties back on the tax roll to kind of help fill the gap. I just think that we just need to continue to make sure that we're doing all that we can to make sure we are being efficient and effective with the resource that we have, but also keep in mind those liabilities that we had. And I don't want the village to be put in a position where we are not able to respond to a crisis situation. Case in point, our fire engine went out on a fire truck. We're talking about like a close to $1 million item that we had to identify resources to be able to replace that truck. So it's things like that, and just making sure that we're being very clear on the financial conditions of the village, and where we're trying to take the village as well. And I think that we need to do a better job of communicating to our residents on what the vision is, where we're trying to go, and how we're going to get there, and kind of where their resources are going as well.
So During the forum, you had given an example of a new revenue stream that, because you said that we need to create new revenue streams besides property taxes, and you mentioned the water relief fund that was implemented a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
But to be clear, that was the result of a business person's individual donation. I think he donated $10,000 or something, and then there was another organization that chipped into that donation, and then the village matched it, I believe.
So to be clear,
go ahead.
To be clear, I just want to state that that was the result of me working with those businesses to bring those revenues to the table to help those individuals.
No, I understand. No, I understand your part in helping to do that. But I'm saying that why would you consider that to be a new revenue stream? That's a donation.
It's just another method to be able to help service our residents, to help to provide a service. Another, I consider another revenue stream to help provide a service or provide assistance.
What are some sustainable revenue revenue streams?
Sure. So with the bundling program that I helped to reestablish, and we're seeing the result of that, getting properties back on the tax rolls in every corner of the community. That is a result of an additional revenue stream that I've been a strong proponent of, and it's making sure that program is moving in the right direction and is creating additional revenue for the village.
Okay, this is a question that's come in from a resident regarding municipal financial statements. There are three. I'll try to get in as many as I can. What is one of the most important funds in a municipal financial statement?
The corporate fund.
And he asks, what do you call the difference between assets and liabilities in government funds?
Well, assets is what you have coming in, and liabilities is what you have going out, basically.
And three, what is our current fund balance?
Our current fund balance?
Yeah. What's Maywood's current fund balance, if it has one at all?
Our current corporate fund balance?
Yeah. I
don't have that. I don't have the number offhand, and I don't want to give them.
Okay. Give out the number. This is in the area of this is also fiscal. In the past, each trustee has gotten an expense account along with a stipend. And since joining the board in 2015, you've established a reputation for spending more than the money that's allotted to each trustee. How can you make sure the village is being fiscally responsible when you've consistently overspent the money that you control as a trustee?
Yeah, and I can speak to that. So coming when I got elected in 2015, of course, I was very much on the grounds and aggressive with, connecting with the residents across the village of Maywood. And then we had established this program for our youth delegation. So a lot of those, instances which they're speaking of, it, happened simply because of this, our youth delegation program. It was a new program that we had implemented in the village. One particular time we got snowed in Washington, D.C. And of course, we didn't allocate that as we were allocate funds for that as we were raising funds, trying to get this program established, and it kind of like sent us overboard in regards to spending. So a lot of that
that was the reason you overspent multiple years.
Yeah, and I think it was like two years, if I'm not mistaken, 2 years, and I know it was definitely two of the years. We got snowed in Washington, D.C. Yes.
Do you think that you should pay the money back? Trustees who overspend the money that they're given, do you think they should pay that money back?
I think that that's something that I would definitely look at and potentially support. But these programs, it was a Maywood program. I wasn't spending the dollars on myself, but it was
in all honesty, this was a program that had your name on it. It was a good program, I think, but I don't think anybody could say it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But trustees have programs all the time. There's no doubt in my mind that a lot of these programs that trustees tout as beneficial for the community are also beneficial for you all from a political standpoint as well. And that makes you look good. But that being said, I don't think that do you think that it's an adequate justification for going over your stipend amount?
No, I don't think it's adequate justification. I think that the correct thing is to just make sure that, I'm in line with, that particular budget that was given to me. So just about making sure that, better tracking of, the particular budget.
So this gets to the youth, the Washington D.C. The trips, and because they were part of the National League of Cities.
Yes.
Typically, each year, trustees are allowed to go to this trip to D.C. The village pays for it. They pay for you all to go and get that information to bring it back to the village. This year, however, was the conference held?
In 2021 so there was a virtual conference that was held in this year.
Did you go to the Did you go to the virtual conference?
No, I could not attend the virtual conference due to my work schedule.
Okay, I just wanted, because that's the only conference that the village wouldn't have foot the bill for, which was in DC, is the one that you didn't attend. That's how it looks to residents.
Yeah, I'm not sure on if you can
when the conference was free and virtually and didn't require the village to pay for you to fly to DC to be at the conference. When it was virtual and when you could just
I'm not sure if
on your computer, that's the one that you didn't attend.
No, I'm not sure if the conference was free.
So you all still had to pay for it?
Yeah, right. So I'm not sure if it was free or not.
But the trip, but you didn't get the point is that you didn't get the trip.
Well, unless you have some information that I don't have, I'm not sure if it was free or not. In the midst of the pandemic, I wasn't looking to travel anywhere. During this time.
I understand that, but I'm saying that how it's perceived is this is a virtual conference that trustees tout as very beneficial.
It is,
for you all, and you all go every year. And quite frankly, a lot of you all go to these things, and this has been a criticism of other trustees who have done this and have abused it. People go, and you go for not just the knowledge, but you go to have. Some people go to have a good time as well. You all go for the trip. You go for the experience. The 1 year in which the conference is happening without the trip is the 1 year you miss. I think that's the issue. What do you say to address that?
And let me go back. So, Mike, so I went to the conference in March of 2020 at the height of the pandemic. So the one that I did not attend was the fall session you're referring to. Yeah, so and of course, as I mentioned, my work schedule did not permit me to allow me to take off the time to be able to go this past March. That's
fair enough. In the area of business and economic development, you've been a big proponent of a range of things related to economic development. In your questionnaire, you mentioned that if elected, you'll be an advocate for the development of a Maywood development corporation that can be focused on marketing and spurring more development in the village. Kind of explain how that might work.
Yes, I look to work with the business community and citizens to help to establish this, to help be another arm to help identify different development opportunities for the village. So I've worked with the Berwyn Development Corporation, when it relates to helping our businesses connect with the grant opportunities that they were leading for the county. And so I've seen how effective, they have been in bringing development to the Berwyn community. And so I think that may be another good avenue to have additional individuals keeping their eyes on Maywood in regards to development.
You are the board liaison to the Economic Development Commission for Maywood, which is recently revitalized, right?
Yes.
Have you what's been the extent of your activity, your recent activity within the last 6 months or so with the Economic Development Commission?
So, of course, I've been attending meetings. We just had a meeting in a presentation, for the business community, just helping to give them some tools on how to, create a strong and thriving business. So just attending the meetings, providing any support I can in any way that I can to be that bridge between the commission and the village board.
Okay. We just transitioning to this situation with grocery stores. Maywood currently doesn't have a full service grocery store. And a lot of people outside of Maywood are wondering why. A lot of people inside of Maywood are wondering why. And that's one of the main things that they want to see from elected officials. There was a young woman who is currently building a grocery store in Chicago from the ground up, Liz.
Yes.
You actually brought her here when she was doing her her pop-up markets. You were very influential in making sure that she got those done, to the point of helping her carry out produce. Very on the grounds and hands-on. She did it for about 2 or 3 months a few years ago. It may have been more than that at various facilities, but then it stopped. For a variety of reasons. Some involved her personally, and then she picked them back up on the west side. But they did stop in Maywood, and she could have been persuaded to return to Maywood because she felt that Maywood was her best market, really. And she actually said to me that she's been very vocal about actually wanting to build a grocery store in Maywood. She said she should have been building in Maywood, not on the west side. But first of all, it stopped when you were involved. It stopped, and then when another trustee, Nathaniel Booker, tried to pick it up and do something with it, it didn't get off the ground. There are a variety of perspectives about why this didn't work. It could have been a grocery store. There's a possibility that it could have if all of the spokes in our economic development engine were working, but they obviously weren't. The consensus, though, is that people have different perspectives, but the consensus is that our board, and namely you and Nathaniel Booker, just can't work together. If you guys if both of y'all had figured out a way to work better together on this, perhaps we would have been on the path to building a grocery store in Maywood from the ground up, her grocery store, as opposed to that grocery store being built on the west side of Chicago. How do you respond to this narrative?
First, let me state I can work with anybody in regards to things that are going to benefit this community, because I've dedicated my life to Maywood and served this community for a long time, since I was in 7th grade. So if it's about the progress of Maywood, I've always been willing to work with anybody. To my understanding, from what I was told, is that the 40 acres, Liz, who I've worked with to bring out to Maywood to provide access. Actually, Maywood was the second time that she did it. I think her first time was in Austin neighborhood, and when she came to Maywood, it was like her second time ever doing that whole pop-up market situation. So when she got to Maywood, it was a huge success. We're talking about there was a line, almost out the door, because people do want to have that ability to have fresh produce and to be able to shop in their own community. And it really was a very unique model that she had by bringing in a chef. And how I connected with her is through one of Maywood's very own, and that's Miss Regina Dillard, who is a chef, professional chef. And so she connected us. And so it was a huge success. So much so that, there was, roadblocks, and she can speak to those things as well, because I communicated with her along the way of just the roadblocks that were set up by, some of the, my board colleagues at the time, because I believe they saw how successful it was. And because it was so successful, they just had to, figure out how they can stop it. Sometimes you have folks who fall into like this whole Willie Lynch theory situation. I think that when it relates to the recent situation, I was in full support of Liz, coming back to Maywood, and, doing it again, because I know it was a huge success. I just think that from what I was told is there was a conversation that was had with, Trustee Booker in regards to, him, just reaching out to me to work with me in regards to establishing it or bringing it back, since I had, worked with the program before. And, it was, she had stated something to the fact that, he stated that he don't work with me or something like that. And I was confused, because I was like, I work with him at least twice a month at our board meetings. And, because with my mindset, we're on the same team, we're on Team Maywood. So I think that was a problem, but I was in support of her, reestablishing that program in Maywood. I think it was very much beneficial. And I think that you're absolutely right. I think that Maywood definitely was up there in the top 2 locations that she was looking at. I think that she was looking at Maywood and also community. But, to even provide further information, I think that was, as and as we see what's happening in the city of Chicago, there were more resources available in the city of Chicago to help her get her business off the ground and start it. So I think that coupled with, the other pieces, is how she ended up in the Austin neighborhood. But I definitely think that Maywood was location.
Let's talk about those resources, and because those resources are things that as board members, you all could be looking to emulate or replicate on a smaller scale in Maywood. The Invest Southwest initiative that Chicago implemented, and its predecessor, those neighborhood opportunity funds that Liz is trying to tap into. But a lot of the grants she got she would have gotten them regardless of where she was trying to open. So she was getting grants from the Heart Association and other national organizations. She's gotten money from all over the place. The resources that she said that Maywood lacked were things like competent personnel, competent development personnel. The resources were things, like these programs that allow small businesses to navigate the process of setting up, or if they lack certain things, to know what they lack and how to overcome those barriers. These are things that Maywood could easily implement. An effective board ought to be implementing. You've been on the board for 6 years now. What have you done to work toward trying to implement stuff like that? Stuff like the things in Chicago that lured her to Chicago and away from Maywood.
Thank you for the question. And I've been a strong proponent of making sure that we utilize our TIF dollars in our respective TIF areas, whether it's our Madison Street TIF or our Roosevelt Road TIF, to create a more business-friendly environment and to create initiatives like expanding our facade program to now our business improvement program, which provides resources to businesses who want to move into Maywood, especially within those 2 TIF areas that we have remaining, whether it's Madison Street TIF or the Roosevelt Road TIF, to help them beyond just fixing the facade of their building, but whether it's interior design, whether it's roofing, whether it's electrical, helping them really to jumpstart their business. And that was the purpose of me working to expand that particular initiative as well. One of the things I also advocated for is to, that we expand our economic development office to make sure that we're creating a more business-friendly environment for businesses who want to come in and do business with the Village of Maywood. Look, Mike, I understand when I got in 2015, I was receiving like these letters from these different companies and these different businesses across the Village of Maywood. And they were saying, it's been a pleasure to be in the Village of Maywood, but we are, going to be relocating our business to a neighboring community like Franklin Park. And so what I did on day one is to make sure that, for our current business, that we start doing check-ins. I walked from Lake Street, along that corridor, along the St. Charles Road corridor, along the Madison Street corridor, in our industrial area over by in that Greenwood area as well. And just check in with the businesses. Some of them never even seen the elected official. And so I've always been on the front line of, being an advocate for our business community and improving our processes in regards to how fast we're responding to things in regards to inspections for our business community. I think that businesses were waiting too long to have an inspector to come out to approve their business, to get their doors open. So just advocating for better processes and making sure that we put better systems in place to get better results for the business community, to make it easier for them to do business with the Village of Maywood, because it is important that we create that climate so that we can continue to get new businesses to come in, to move into Maywood as well, and to keep the businesses that we have.
A big question that's come up frequently is, people understand that the village has a part-time mayoral form of government. Do you support the transition to a full-time mayoral form of government? Understanding that we all know that there needs to be a referendum and all that to happen, but the logistics of it aside, do you support Maywood becoming a full-time mayoral form of government?
I think that there's definitely some potential in regards to Maywood becoming a mayoral or a strong mayoral form of government. But I think that that all belongs to the people of the Village of Maywood. Like I stated, I've been involved for a long time. So I remember when this was on the ballot once before. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was around, I want to say 2010 when it was on the ballot. So the residents, the residents of the village had the opportunity to decide whether or not, if that's what type of government they wanted, and they voted no in regards to changing the form of government in the Village of Maywood. So the people must know that that power lies with them, and it's through a referendum process. But I do believe that our government can work well with both a village manager form of government or a strong mayor form of government. You just need a vision and to have everybody on the same page, giving clear direction to our village manager to get the results that we're looking for as a community.
So if you get in office and you don't come into office with your running mates, the people that you support, or for some reason your running mates, turn against you, how are you as one vote on the board going to try to build consensus among people who may not agree with you or may just be disagreeable, period?
It's about compromise. It's about communication. It's about just having everybody on the same page in regards to what the ultimate goal is and where we're headed as a community. And just I think the first thing, like I stated, is just like communicating with one another and building that professional working relationship with the board, with my board colleagues.
Now, you just called out one of your board colleagues who's running against you, and said that. How do you think being so direct in your criticism is going to curry your favor? And do you try to reach out as a trustee, not as a mayoral candidate, but as a trustee? What are some things that you've been trying to do to reach out to your opponents on the board currently, or before you started running for mayor?
Yeah, I don't see anybody as a. I mean, as a trustee, I don't see anybody as an opponent, or I don't see myself in competition with anybody when I'm in the chambers. Because again, we're on the same board, represent one vision, and that's Maywood. So I do believe that um, you know, after this, process, I would have, be having a conversation with, all of those individuals that are going to be elected, and hopefully it's, the People's Choice Party, in the way in which we're going to move the village and how we're going to do it collectively and together.
You just speaking to again to some of the things that you put forward. In 2018, you introduced a proposal that put together a commission to explore the possibility of Maywood being able to tap into water that travels through our community without paying Merrill's Park a fee on top of the fee that we pay Chicago. The board voted unanimously on your proposal, which you introduced, to establish that commission of experts and community stakeholders that was supposed to explore the feasibility of something like that. That was 3 years ago. What's the status of the commission now that you were responsible for creating?
So, that was a great question. So, in regards to that particular initiative, there were a lot of conversation around this particular issue about, Maywood tapping into its own water line, but it all boiled down to is like dollars and cents, right? So, we're getting ready to pay off the bond that we had taken out to with Merrill's Park to build the new line that they built, not only with Maywood, but with other communities as well. So after talking to the engineers and talking to, with the village manager, at that time, I just didn't think it was a feasible situation for the village in regards to looking at incurring additional costs to build a new water line. Because even, if you tap into the one that goes out to DuPage, there are a lot of questions that have to be answered. Do it have the capacity? They have to give you permission in order to tap into their line, and then you have to build a new connection between that line and the village of Maywood, and like the cost and just what goes into it, was just a complicated situation. But I just think it wasn't feasible at the time to move forward with. Hello.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry. And we're switching to public safety. 2 years ago, I believe, Ruth Johnson, who's a Maywood resident, well known and beloved, was tragically killed in a car crash. That was the result. All the evidence shows of a police chase. And the documents show that it was unauthorized, most likely. What's the status? Are you, as the board, you were on the board that authorized the chief to look into this by hiring an independent, an outside investigative firm to look into this? You all were supposed to pay them, I think, $5,000 or something over increments, and during the process, the chief was supposed to update you incrementally as the investigation played out. These updates, a few of them were in public. I remember seeing one at least. Then they stopped. That's been 2 years. What's the status of the Ruth Johnson case?
Well, I believe the case is still under investigation at this particular time. And just to go back to what you said about the 5,000, so we put a threshold for the individuals who were going to be the company that was going to be investigating the case. So once that the chief had reached that threshold, the chief needed to come back to the board to provide information on to us in regards to where we was at financially with this particular company, just to make sure we didn't just turn over the checkbook to this company in regards to just running up hours for this particular case. But it is still under investigation. can't go into
But
detail about.
it's been 2 years since this thing started, and the relatives of Ruth Johnson are complaining that they have not been they've not been contacted by the police department or the members of the board or village staff, and you know, this investigation is accruing money, bills. So are you all keeping track of how much you're spending on an independent investigation that's taken 2 years?
Yeah, as I just stated, we put a threshold in place.
How much total money have you all spent on this investigation?
I don't have those figures in front of me, but I know that the chief is supposed to report to the board once they've reached, I believe it's that $5,000 threshold.
But my point is that they couldn't have. They had to have been reaching the 5,000 threshold over 2 years. Either they didn't reach the $5,000 threshold, meaning they didn't do anything, or they reached it multiple times and just didn't. There was no report to you all. So which one is it?
Well, again, it is like we have communicated with the police chief. You know, he was to come to the board once that threshold was reached, and I don't want to go into any further details about the case, but I do know that we did put that in place in regards.
I want to be clear though that none of you who are running for mayor has answered this question, despite the fact that this information was agreed by the board to be public, vis-a-vis in updates that the chief would give regularly. So yeah. Why can't you discuss this case in public, which is what you all agreed upon? Because Ruth Johnson's family wants to know. You have relatives of a lady who was killed, and the relatives are currently suing the police department, and there are a lot of grieving people who are in her family who feel that they have been, they've kind of been ignored by the village. Now, there was a whole lot of marches that virtually all of you on the board attended after the murder of George Floyd regarding police abuse. And yet, what it seems is if you guys are ignoring the police abuse and the police misconduct in your own town.
Mike, so yeah, again, because it is a legal issue.
No, but I'm saying
we have to be careful as board members to.
Some of this is public. What I'm saying is that you all agreed to make the information public in intervals, and yet none of this has happened. You all said that the chief should report about this regularly, and that has not been happening.
So let's go back. You said we agreed to make this information public. What we agreed. That was part of the vote. What was part of the vote?
When you all voted to spend money, to allow the police department to spend money on this outside firm to come in and investigate the crash.
That once there was a conclusion, and once we have come up with
and it wasn't once there was a conclusion. It was you need to let us know what you all are doing for our money in exchange for the village giving them money.
Right, correct.
And there was a report that had happened at least once that I sat in on during a board meeting. Why didn't those reports continue, and why have there been no reports practically since then?
And that's something that I will have to follow with the chief on. But I do know that we did put in place that so it. From my understanding, if he has not presented anything to us in regards to, that particular threshold, that was nothing is happening at this particular time. Then, like you stated, if it's been on the table for 2 years, something would have come before the board in regards to any payments that would have been made if this issue has exceeded. Which it would have if they was working consistently on the case by now, of course, that it would have come before the board. So you're saying that the police department has not been, or these investigators have not been consistently investigating this case of a woman who was murdered, who was killed in a car crash. Right, and I'm not sure on the status of that.
And you all are satisfied by that? I mean, this should You would think that people on the board should be furious about how this has been handled because our family is.
Right, and I do understand the nature of the situation, and I do believe that we're going to work to get to the bottom of it. I just will have to circle back around to figure out what has happened with that investigation process.
Fair enough, and I don't want to keep harping on this, but I have a few more questions with respect to, and these are all about. Related to your personal record. You are alone among candidates who have, you tout your record with young people, and you have an extensive record of working with young people. You as a young person yourself was really active in village government, going back a long time. You established a nonprofit, Youth on the Move, as a young person. What's the current status of the nonprofit that you established, which is really that is helping establish your bona fides as a champion of young people that you're using on the campaign trail? What's the status of the nonprofit right now?
Yeah, we're not. I haven't operated the organization in a while now. Because I've been focused on other areas. But absolutely, my record of working with young people, no one can dispute that. I've been working with youth in the village of Maywood since I was a youth myself, and advocating on behalf of youth in this community since I was in 7th grade as a student at Washington Elementary, attending the village board meetings, understanding the process, and just being a voice for young people across the village. So when it relates to my record, it's indisputable in regards to my contributions to young people here in the village of Maywood. And yes, even prior to establishing, Youth on the Move at that particular time, I was on the grounds being an advocate for youth, whether it was serving on the student council, class council, and Provisor Weiss, whether it was just attending the board meetings, advocating for things that I thought that was important to the youth, like opportunities, summer job opportunities, or ensuring that 10th Park was maintained. 10th Washington Park was maintained because it was one of the #1 parks that we would all go to. So my record is really strong in regards to champion for youth, and I carry the same energy with me onto the village board by making sure I pay it forward by getting young people involved in civic engagement, just like the same process that I went through. It was a sitting trustee on the board who got me involved in local government, and so I wanted to provide the same opportunity for them as well. But yeah, that's my response to that.
So the nonprofit is currently not in operation.
Correct. Yes.
The second to last question, I know you have somewhere to be, so I don't want to keep you too long. But I also want to make sure that you get enough time to answer as many questions as you need to. With respect to, and I don't think this is something that you got an opportunity to really stretch out and to kind of flesh out. I'm sorry, but what's your larger economic vision for Maywood?
My larger economic vision for the village of Maywood includes focusing in on our major corridors, like First Avenue, as well as Fifth Avenue, Roosevelt Road as well. I think that just based on the traffic count within our First Avenue corridor, it deserves a lot of more attention in regards to the village marketing those areas. And just coming up with a clear plan of what we want to see within those particular areas based on the traffic count. I definitely think that is one of our talents. I'm also envision us working more with Loyola in regards to understanding what their development needs are as well. And identifying ways to get them to possibly build more in the community as well, and identify ways how we can work together. So just rebuilding our major corridors, rebuilding our Fifth Avenue corridor, and making sure that we build around our transportation hubs, especially around Fifth and Main Street. There's a lot of potential in that particular area. to do a lot of creative things. And I think that even when it relates to like that Fifth Avenue in Lake to Fifth Avenue in Main Street, looking at potentially establishing an arts district as well. I think that we must focus on giving people a reason to do three things in the village of Maywood, and that's to stop, stay, and to spend. And that's what our focus must be. We must be more intentional about investing in our own community through community development, making sure that we work on improving our roads and our streets, making sure that any vacant lots or any vacant properties we have throughout the village within those key areas and really throughout the village of Maywood, that we are beautifying those areas until a developer come to purchase it, but just not allowing it to just remain vacant and eyesore in the village, but just making sure that we make those areas more attractive. So as developers are traveling through our community, they're thinking Maywood. And I'm happy to, say that just by promoting that and being a strong proponent of that, there will be monies in the budget to improve those properties within our TIF areas that are blighted areas, to make them more attractive as developers are traveling through Maywood.
You also mentioned that you would, in your questionnaire, that you would, as mayor, support the creation of a communications team.
Yes, absolutely.
Explain how that might look like. What that might look like.
So right now, I think as we continue to navigate through this pandemic, it's very clear that we need someone to help to communicate to our residents on how we're navigating through this whole process and kind of like where the village is going, and help keep them engaged in the conversation as well. So I look forward to identifying someone who would be, working with, both the mayor's office and the manager's office to help communicate the direction of the village, what our vision is, on a regular basis, and staying consistent with it as well, and making sure that we do it in a way that we're reaching out to our Hispanic community as well. So when communication goes out, it goes out in Spanish, so that we're keeping our Hispanic community in the loop on the direction and the goals and the vision of the village of Maywood. I think that having somebody on top of making sure that our website is up to date, making sure it's easy for people to navigate through, making sure that we have a strong voice to help us communicate the vision of the people of Maywood.
Are you going to hire somebody on this communications team, or is this person, they're going to be voluntary? Or
I think that there are some opportunities because of the budget constraints within this current budget to work with our universities in the area, Dominican, Concordia, looking at some students who are going into the field of communication to kind of like work with us.
So you like starting an internship program or something? Starting
an internship program to help, just because of our budget constraints, knowing and understanding.
Will this be paid or unpaid?
It will be unpaid. Yeah, it will be unpaid.
So you had a lot of it's a lot riding on what you're expecting of them, which is to be these brand ambassadors for Maywood, but you're relying on unpaid internships from colleges to do this. Do you think, how is that going to be?
And I've seen
effective?
I've seen like I know that Dominican and both Concordia are looking for opportunities to work with the village of Maywood and to assist. I think that may be an avenue, but I do think that we can just look at different resources to be able to support that as well. But when it relates to our current budget constraints, I want to be very creative in how we are doing that, and by not adding any additional stress to our current budget.
I want to give you the opportunity to talk about the gas tax that you were in support of. Can you kind of flesh that out, explain a bit more about what
Sure.
gas tax was?
we know we have an old and aging infrastructure here in the village of Maywood, and we have folks traveling through the community. In order for us to be able to address our infrastructure needs, I thought that it was very much necessary that we looked at that as an additional revenue stream to help us support the need to build up our infrastructure. And I thought that would be a good way or a good initiative to be able to bring in some additional revenue to build our infrastructure.
A resident asked, going back to your idea to bring in unpaid interns from various colleges to be brand ambassadors of sorts for Maywood. Mm-hmm. He says, how would it look to bring in a brand ambassador to Maywood who is not from Maywood?
I think that, giving them information on, the community, and so they are part of the region, and just helping to educate them on our history, where we're going, and giving them the tools that they need to be able to effectively communicate on behalf of the village of Maywood.
Got it. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of just make your case for why you should be the next mayor of Maywood, and you can take as long as you want.
And let me first, before I go into that, just thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for providing this platform for all of the candidates in this race to share, the reasons why, they should, be in the leadership role. So for me, I really represent the best of both worlds in this particular election. Not only do I have the heart and passion for this community, but I also have the energy, the vision, as well as the innovation to move this community in the right direction. I've always been committed to the village of Maywood, again, since I was a student in 7th grade. At Washington School, attending the village board meetings. I have a record of service here in the village of Maywood, just on the ground, just identifying solutions for this community. And so I think that really the choice is really clear in this race. I've had the opportunity to work with the current mayor and provide support and ideas to her in the role. And I would just believe at this particular juncture, the village of Maywood needs not only someone who has a heart for the community, but the ability to get the job done on behalf of the residents. And it's not really about me, it's about the entire team that I'm running with as well. We have the best team in this election. And I can say that, just it's clear. We have Eileen Olivier, who was on our Economic Development Commission. She was a part of the PTA. She's a business owner, just a well-rounded individual. She's going to be a strong voice on the village board. We have Gilberto Guzman. He has a proven track record of serving this community and making sure that the best vision is being promoted for the village of Maywood. He's going to bring some great experience to the board. And then Aaron Peppers. We all know Coach Pep. He's the head coach for Providers Beach football team. But other than that, he also served as a police officer for 25 years on the Maywood Police Force. So he's going to be a huge asset in regards to making sure that we tackle crime across the village and making sure that we create a safe community. And then we have our clerk candidate, Aja Ousley. Aja Ousley is going to bring innovation to the clerk's office. She's going to bring stronger communication there. This young lady has, just been on the grounds, working to engage youth in regards to civic engagement. As a regional director, for the Juniors Achievement, she's been working with our schools and our educational systems, already have the connection to continue to educate our young people on the importance of civic engagement. So she's going to be on the ground, and she's a product of this community. She's ready to serve Maywood. And I think that collectively, our decades of service to the village, our shared experiences is what is needed at this time to help elevate Maywood. And I would, encourage everybody to look at the candidates that's running in this race. Ask yourself the question of who's been on the grounds, who's been committed to Maywood, and who represents the best of both worlds. And you would come up with the conclusion that that candidate is Isaiah Brandon. And I will be the next mayor of the village of Maywood. I've been on the grounds my entire life, been working on behalf of this community, been a true champion on behalf of Maywood. And I am ready to serve. My team is ready to serve, and we're going to help to elevate Maywood in a huge way that we've never seen before. Just utilizing our shared experiences and our commitment and our vision for the village of Maywood. We have a plan. We have a vision that we're going to implement on day one to build a better Maywood. And I am so happy and honored to be running with these dedicated individuals that's going to help me help the residents to elevate Maywood. And I look forward to making this happen on April the 6th, because I believe as I'm out knocking on doors, talking to the residents, they know the story. They know who's been an advocate on their behalf. There's this quote that says, some people flew here, but I grew here. Right here, on the grounds of Maywood, just committed to this community. People know my story. People know my story. And I'm so happy as I'm out going door to door that they can share that story as well. So I look forward to serving as the next mayor of the village of Maywood. I look forward to working with Trustee Booker. I look forward to working with Mayor Perkins, getting her ideas as well. And I look forward to just bringing the right energy to the village is going to help us elevate and create a strong and thriving community. And it's been such a pleasure and honor to serve this community. This community has truly been good to me over the years. I want to thank all of my mentors who've instilled these qualities within me and who've just given me a lot of wisdom over the years. So I have to pay respect to those individuals, like Eugene Moore, and even Mayor Perkins too. She's definitely been, a strong source of energy in regards to, me being involved in local government. So I appreciate her energy as well. But at this particular juncture, your next mayor will be Isaiah Brandon. Your next clerk will be AJ Alsley. And your next trustees will be Aaron Peppers, Gilberto Guzman, and Eileen Olivier. And I encourage you all to come out to vote. Early voting starts March the 22nd and goes to April the 5th. Election day is on April the 6th, but you don't have to wait. You can vote early at the Witchcomb building over on at Maybrook Courthouse, or you can vote at the Bellwood Village Hall or the Merrill's Park Village Hall as well. I encourage everybody to get out to vote and to get registered to vote so you can participate in the process, because it is so important that we all are participating. And I look forward to continuing to serve this great community.
Please, if you have a website that people can visit to learn more about your campaign, you can take the time to do that. Sure,
they can check out the People's Choice Party. That's the peopleschoiceparty.com. That's the people. They can also connect with us via social media as well if they have any questions. And that's the peopleschoiceparty.com. And we actually have an event that's happening this evening that I would encourage the residents that could come out if they can. It's a birthday celebration for me that's happening at El Duranguitos over on 4th and Lake Street. And we have some other events that's happening over the next 2 weeks to continue to connect and engage with the residents as well. Now, I encourage you all to check us out on social media. You can check us out on one of our virtual town halls as well, which takes place every Wednesday.
Thank you all for joining us. I appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday to do this.
Thank you so much.
I want to remind everybody that there will be 2 more opportunities to see candidates. If you haven't seen enough, one will be on Wednesday, March 24th, 10 a.m. at Proviso Baptist Church, 1116 South 5th Avenue in Maywood. Interfaith Illinois Incorporated will be hosting a candidates forum. Doors will open at 9 a.m. For more information, call 708-397-6944. The organizers mentioned that distance seating and CDC COVID-19 protocols will be observed. And the next day, on Thursday, March 25th, 7 p.m., the Coalition for Spiritual and Public Leadership will host a candidates forum online. You can visit CSPL Action, that's CSPLACTION.org for more information on that event. As was mentioned, I hope you all go out and vote on April 6th. We appreciate all three candidates for sitting down to talk with us and to have these endorsement interviews. They've been very enlightening and insightful. And we are looking forward to the next two events before people get to the polls. So I really encourage people to vote. It's an incredibly important election for Maywood. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.